All right. Well, welcome to Roots of Reality Experiences. Today I'm joined by Ryan Michaels, who is one half of the popular husband and wife country duo Haley and Michaels. Their music was featured in the Netflix film Walk, Ride, Rodeo and has millions of streams on Spotify. Additionally, they recently released a song with a group of musicians in the Ukrainian chorus of New York called Peace, Love, and Joy in support of Ukraine. So, Ryan, thanks for coming on today.
Man, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, when did you first get interested in music?
Well, I grew up in a family-owned music store in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I grew up, around music. My dad was a musician. He was always making trips to Nashville, writing songs. So just grew up around all of it.
And so, did you dream of becoming a musician as a kid, or?
You know what's funny? I don't know that it was a dream as much as it's always just something that was what was it's like a natural evolution of my childhood, I guess, because I
Okay.
was always just around music, making music. So I never actually really thought about doing anything else. So sometimes I wonder if I should have, but I didn't. So
Yeah, I guess I mean, were your parents like encouraging you to pursue a career in music, or were they like, "Oh, be careful, weigh your options," or?
yeah, no, they were always so supportive of whatever I wanted to do, which was really great. And I think, we have a daughter now, a 2-year-old daughter, and I think just passing on that same thing to her. I think for any of us, just encouraging, our kids and our friends and our family members to follow their passion. I think good things always come when people follow their hearts and follow their passion. And so I was very fortunate to have a family that was very supportive of that.
Yeah. Was there a particular genre of music that you grew up listening to the most?
That's a good question. I think because my dad was like a traditional country musician, but I was growing up in San Francisco area. My uncle was also a classic rock guy, and he was like in
Yeah.
Woodstock and all that stuff. So I grew up, I mean, I think literally around every possible type of music. I also sing in choirs, and I love musical theater. So no, I think it's all there, and it's all same for Shannon as well. And I think it's all kind of baked into the music that we make.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it does seem like a blend of different types together. So it is pretty cool in that way, I think.
Thank you.
Um, Now, when did you decide to move to Nashville? Because that's always a big step, I feel like, for musicians. Say, I'm
Yeah.
going to go, across the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah, I let's see. That's a good question. Well, I've been in Nashville for 20 years. And when I got out of high school early because I wanted to get going with my music career. So I came here when I was 17. Um, and I just never really occurred to me to do anything else. I think Nashville specifically, just because my dad had been coming back and forth making songwriting trips, and I saw him doing that, and so again it was a bit of a natural evolution of my childhood. So and Nashville felt familiar to me, and I think one of the things that I love about Nashville specifically is the songwriting community. It doesn't matter what genre you're talking about, but if you're talking about songwriting and the core of it, I really feel like Nashville is where I learned to write songs, where we learned to write songs, and it's a town that's just based on the lyrics and
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah, definitely the place to be, especially for country music. So, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
now, when your dad, so you mentioned that your dad's a musician. So he was a professional musician as well, then?
He was, yeah. We owned a family-owned music store, but he also played in bars and bands, country bands and rock bands and everything else. And I think it was just a really cool influence to see him doing that, getting out there on the weekends and playing with bands and listening to all of his songs.
Yeah.
And I also think that, like a song like Peace, Joy, Love, using your voice in a way to hopefully connect with people and uplift people. A lot of that influence came from the rock and roll genre, and seeing how artists like John Lennon and just so many people would put messages out there to the world. So that was always a big part of it for me, regardless of what type of music that I made or that now we make. It was always just really important to have our voices in there as well.
Yeah. So how'd you get involved then with creating that song, for Ukraine and everything?
Yeah, so Shannon and I originally started a song with our friend Isabella, who's a fantastic writer who's also signed to Sony like we are out of the New York office. And we had the idea, and Jim Brickman came to town, and he is one of our favorite all-time musicians and songwriters, and he brought his friends, Matt and Savannah Shaw, who are an incredible father-daughter duo. And we had a songwriting session set up, and so we had already started this idea, and we brought it into them. And originally we started it with the idea that it was a holiday song, but as we got deeper into it, we felt like there was an opportunity for a broader message. And so together we all kind of pulled the idea together. And I was watching Saturday Night Live right after Russia invaded Ukraine. And I saw the Ukrainian chorus Dumka of New York on Saturday Night Live singing the Ukrainian anthem. And it was just so powerful. It was just a cold open and so emotional. It was everything that music is supposed to do. They were using music as a bit of a way of showing strength and solidarity as the war was starting. I also felt, seeing them just also as a producer of the track, that was the right addition to really get the message of peace, joy, love out there into the world, was to collaborate with them. And I reached out to them and have become dear friends with the conductor of Vasile, who also wrote a beautiful arrangement for the song. And it just, the relationship evolved, and everybody's have become like family to us. And just, an opportunity to, like I said, use our platform in whatever way we could. So it was just kind of a natural evolution.
It's really cool that you got involved with a project like that, because I feel like I've lived abroad and I've traveled internationally quite a bit, and I've always felt like it can be hard for Americans to relate to events that are going on around the world because they seem so far away. I mean, we're living in a country that survived World War I and World War II without really any damage at all in the continental U.S. So it's interesting and really cool that musicians like you can look abroad and see how big of a deal that is and try to share that message with people.
Man, it's really, thanks for saying that. And I think it's really a good point that you make. And I think we all have an inherent ability, especially when there's trauma. And when you just turn on the news for a minute and you see, things as horrifying as what Russia's doing with Ukraine right now, you almost immediately have to depersonalize it, because if you personalized everything, it's too horrific to make sense out of. And at the same time, I was raised with Jewish heritage, and I think that I grew up going to the Holocaust Museum and really learning about things like that. And so I think when you have that high level, looking down, awareness about the world, and that things can happen that are unbelievable, it makes it a little harder to depersonalize. And when I find myself doing that, I always check back in to what it felt like as a kid, going to the Holocaust Museum and trying to imagine what it would be like for the people in Ukraine now. And it's not just Ukraine, right? It's all around the world. I mean, there's so many things, the women in Iran, and unfortunately we could go on and on. But,
definitely.
I think that you're right, that hopefully, we've partnered with President Zelensky's organization, United 24, and all of the proceeds are going there. But I think that, fortunately, there's been a lot of pouring out of financial support for Ukraine. But I think another important part of it, that's a big part of this song, is also just keeping people's attention on the fact that it's still happening. And just promoting the song as a Christmas song, as a holiday song, all the way through the holidays and New Year's. And that's largely just about, because when people see a message of peace, joy, love, and they see the Ukrainian choir, hopefully it reminds them that, while that's not what's happening over there right now, that is the wish of the people there. And it was just very cool, so we're trying to keep the message alive as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's awesome that you're doing that. And it's everyone should be really appreciative of that, because it is something. I mean, we're in such a globalized society today now, with the internet connecting everyone. I mean, you can go online and message anyone around the world at any time. It's cool to see people, starting to have that globalized view, because we're all connected to these things. And as history shows, one incident abroad can trigger, lots of other incidents around the world. And, we could all get involved in conflicts. And so it's always good to, help countries that are, fighting for their lives. So
Absolutely, and I'm with you that if there were bombs going off here, everyone pays attention, which I understand, and we can all be guilty of that, but
yeah,
it's really important sometimes just to check in and do our best not to depersonalize something just because you only see it on the news and you could turn the TV off.
yeah, definitely. Well, I'm curious to sort of know more about your background and forming Haley and Michaels, because I think that you have a really interesting and unique story that I don't see very often when it comes to the music business. And so I just want to know more about how'd you and your wife form Haley and Michaels in the first place?
Yeah, man, it was really kind of organic and one of those things. I hate to sound cliche, but kind of meant to be. We met in Nashville. At the time, I was in a rock band. She was an aspiring singer songwriter living in Los Angeles. And someone from our mutual hometown in the San Francisco Bay Area introduced us, and apparently it had happened a couple times over the years. So we knew each other's names because different people had tried to introduce us. But finally, she came to Nashville, and we actually, we connected immediately. But sometimes with chemistry, it's when it's as strong as it was with Shannon and I, you don't know where to place it. The first thing we did was we started making music together, and my band performed at the Roxy Theater in Los Angeles. And she got up and just sang one song with us, and it was a packed audience, and pretty much all anyone wanted to do afterwards was talk about, hey man, your band, that was awesome, rock and roll. But really, when you sang with Shannon, that was really the thing that really caught my attention. And I must have heard that like 100 times, and I knew that they were responding to the chemistry that we felt. And so we pretty much immediately started the songwriting process, and and that really started, things just started working naturally, and people started listening to the songs, and we started, we got a booking agent, and then we signed to Sony after a while, and just kind of, and then really evolved together, I think, as writers and artists as well. But I think the through line, and then we got married in 2015, and ironically, our biggest song has been our wedding song called "Giving It All to You." So ironically, our big song that we've done on the Today Show a couple times, and that when we play out, a lot of people requested or have a story about it, it was actually written to be our wedding vows. So that's really a special layer of this whole thing, is that underlying, whether it's peace, joy, love, or a wedding song, there is that family oriented, just love underneath all of it.
Yeah, I mean your guys' life and how you formed a music group together. I mean, that it really is like a movie to think that a couple meets and then creates a music group that becomes popular. I mean, it's like, what are the chances of that? It's pretty amazing. And you guys grew up near each other, right? But never had met.
Yeah, we grew up 3 miles apart. And I mentioned that I grew up in a family music store. So her mom would bring her in and buy
Oh, okay.
she would buy sheet music from my grandma, who was running the sheet music department at the time. And so I don't think that Shannon and I met, even though I was working there in high school, but we definitely, crossed paths several times, and grew up going to the same restaurants, and bought all of our first CDs from the same Tower Records, and all of that. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy and surreal, and it's definitely something special that we share. And I think where we are now, as the world has always changing, and we've evolved musically, and had a daughter, and now we're pregnant, having a son in the first quarter of next year.
Oh wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And I think what that does is that you really start checking, what are you putting out into the world, and does it matter? And so that's our model now, is does this matter? And there's lots of different ways. Again, it can be peace, joy, love. It can be a wedding song. It could be a breakup song, letting people know that they're not alone and going through a hard time. But regardless, we're always checking to see if the songs that we're putting out matter, at least to us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much. I mean, I've gone through all your guys' music, and it does seem like the relatability of your music is super high. I mean, it's just there's all these songs that just hit on basically experiences that every single person goes through in their life. And so it's really cool because it makes music so accessible to everyone, where you don't, it's not like something where you have to have a certain lived experience to relate to, because they're these general experiences that everyone can relate to.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Thanks for saying that. And I think, you hit it from the standpoint of, I mean, I appreciate that you are, that you find it relatable. I think that when you write things that are small and specific to you, so even though something might sound broad, whether it's a song like Hail Mary that we did with the NFL, or that we
Yeah.
Light at the End of the Tunnel, which was just on an NBC show, and all of that. There's messages in there and experiences that are very small and actually specific, but you can write a song, so that you hope, that the small specific message to you can be conveyed in a broader way, where someone else can relate their own experience into that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one of the fascinating things about experience, because every song does have a meaning behind it that's specific to the writers of that song, and how people interpret when they're listening to it. It's kind of like reading a book, where when you read a book, everyone who reads this book has kind of a different mental image in their head of what's happening, but they're reading the same book. So when you're listening to a song, it's like you're listening to the same song, but you're attaching it to some life experience that you personally have, and making it relatable to you, even if it had a different meaning, perhaps a slightly different way to the original writers.
Yeah, totally, man. You've got it. And that's the purpose of music, right? Because that's what music was like for us when we were growing up. It helps shape you, inform you, and other people's experiences can help, your journey. And so we just hope to be able to do that in whatever way it is for other people. And certainly it's very gratifying to be able to continue to put music out and hear our daughter singing along and all that. It's bonus.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And so, like, what's it like making music then as a couple?
Well, she's always wrong. I'm just kidding. No, I think one of the things, and this is true of any group that actually sticks together, is that sometimes there can be, just like in relationships, there can be a rub, a healthy one, where you truly get the best out of both people, and the other person has a perspective, and talent, and you have your own version of that, and we're usually, with Shannon and I, we're going for the same thing, but sometimes there's different ways of getting there, and we always end up in a place where, whether it's a lyric or a melody or a production, we never feel like it's subjective to us. We always feel like, oh, yep, it's right. The right line finally fell out of the sky and it's in the right place, or the right guitar part, or the right, collaborator, or whatever. So it's a very spiritual journey for us. And and I think there's those songs that have spirits to them, that where you feel it viscerally. You can listen to it 100 times in a row and not get bored. And we're always aiming for that. It doesn't mean you get it every time, but I do think that having someone who you respect, their talent and them as a person, and then of course love personally, I think that can really be an asset. And I think with us it has been.
So I'm curious, like, how do you guys come up with songs? Because it must be such an interesting dynamic, because you guys are always around each other, I guess, for the most part, since you're married. And like, I can imagine you guys are like in the grocery store or something like that, and just like, hey, I just had a song idea, or
you pretty much nailed it. I mean, that is it. Neither of us are very academic in that standpoint. The best ideas that we've had always come from somewhere. They pretty much fall out of the sky, like you just said. It has happened at the grocery store, when you're doing the dishes, or when I'm going for a run. A lot of times when I'm exercising or doing yoga or meditating, just anything that kind of creates space. Usually the ideas come. And then we can structure writing sessions, and we don't always just write the two of us. So we have friends and collaborators that we love and respect, and we'll take them our ideas. But usually the song, you can write the song. I mean, any professional songwriter can write a song. But if the idea is inspired, and you know what you're aiming at, you know what you're trying to say, and you believe in it, that's usually when it has that extra, visceral spirit, I like to call it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I wonder, like, when your kids are adults, if you guys are gonna have like a 4-person group or something. Yes.
I can't even imagine, man.
It's such a unique situation. I mean, do you know any other couples that are both musicians together in a group?
I don't. Matt and Savannah, who are dear friends and with us on Peace, Joy, Love. That's a father-daughter, which I think is really special and has its own set of dynamics.
Yeah.
But as far as other married couples, I mean, I think, it takes a lot of work. It really does. I mean, you can see why it doesn't work very often, because marriages are hard enough and relationships are hard enough. I think in our case, it just so happens that we're always aiming at the same thing. So sometimes, like I said, there can be that rub, and getting there can be painful and whatever. But when you get there, it feels so good and so fulfilling. And so no, we haven't really gotten to work with anyone else that does it, not in this way,
Yeah.
not like this. So it's cool. I mean, when we're writing songs, we're able to say, well, you could say this, then I could say this, and you could say this, but a lot of duets can do that. But when it's your wife or your husband, you can be really specific, and you can get in there and say things that maybe wouldn't work for just just anybody.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, I'm sure a lot easier to coordinate stuff because you guys are
Yeah,
together all the time. So it's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
interesting dynamic for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking before I talked to you, I was like, geez, have I ever heard of like a couple that was a group together? And I couldn't think of anyone. It's such a cool dynamic. And I mean, as I said before, it really is kind of like these type of movies because everyone's kind of in this journey in their life, and the fact that you guys have a journey where you end up meeting and starting a music group together is just such a unique story that could be passed down for generations in your family. I mean, that's so cool.
That's man. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I mean, we always talk about that, like when we put music out, especially now. When our daughter Kira, when she Googles us, and goes back, or when our son, Googles us and goes back, and what did my parents do with their life? I mean, we want them to help people and do what they're passionate about and stand up for what they believe in. But if you're not doing that yourself, it's a much harder sell. And so,
Yeah.
we always think about if they're taking a look at what we did with our lives, and how that can influence them and hopefully help shape the world in our own little corner of the world. So yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, and it makes sense, I guess. Yeah, especially like when you have kids, everything kind of changes in terms of, you start thinking more carefully about, how you do things and,
Yeah,
what influence you're going to have on them. So I'm sure for all musicians, that's something I guess you have to keep in mind
yeah,
as life changes.
yeah, absolutely.
So what are you currently working on then?
That's a good question. Actually, we haven't announced this yet, so I guess I'll do it right now.
Oh, perfect.
But
All right.
so on Friday, we have something really special coming out. And it's also with the Ukrainian Chorus Dumka of New York.
Oh,
And it
wow.
is a 100-year anniversary version of Shedrick, Carol of the Bells, which was originally a Ukrainian song,
Yeah.
and then translated into English, which we all now know as Carol of the Bells. And Vasile wrote an incredible arrangement, and asked me to produce it, and asked us to sing on it. And so once again, we are working with the Ukrainian Chorus Dumka New York and the children's choir as well, and just having a blast with these guys, and just keeping love and positivity out there, and keeping hopefully the attention on what's happening in Ukraine. So that'll be our big holiday song. We'll be we'll be that, and peace, joy, love with the choir.
That's awesome. I mean, and you've done holiday music also in the past as well. Like what makes you interested in doing like holiday music? Because it seems like something that lots of famous groups have done. It's always kind of an interesting thing to because I guess it's a different dynamic slightly to do holiday music versus something else.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Shannon loves holiday music, so that's one thing.
Okay.
You know, but the other thing is, I think that there's something about it. It lets you branch out as an artist, as a songwriter. I think that our goal is to relate to everybody, and to relate as many people as possible. And there's something about the holidays, regardless of what holiday you acknowledge or celebrate, that I think everybody can kind of get on board for it, and that everyone acknowledges it's a time to slow down, or give back, or reflect, or be with family, and set intentions for the following year. So there's something in that for me.
Yeah.
The world slows down, where I want us to have a body of work, and I see an opportunity for different kinds of messages, to put out to the world then versus what you might do during the regular, year. So that's, the holiday music. Other than that, we wrote a song for our daughter Kira. We've written actually several for her, but there's one that we're in the process of negotiating our first book deal to release as a children's book next year, along with the lyrics
Wow.
song. So really excited about that. And then we have we talked about our wedding song, Giving It All to You. We have a version of that which we're really excited about, that we're doing with Jim Brickman, who's one of our musical heroes and now a friend. And obviously with songs like Valentine and The Gift, he's written some of the best love songs of all time. And so we're very excited to get to collaborate with him on the new version of our wedding song next year.
That's awesome. So lots of projects then going on.
Lots happening.
Are you gonna try to do like a tour sometime in the near future, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll get this second baby out of the way, and
Sure,
then
naturally, that's a good thing. Yeah.
But we've had lots of opportunities, and that we haven't been saying no. We've been telling people yes. We just want to line it up as a part of the next chapter when we're out on the road. So, definitely, I think towards the summer and the fall of next year, we'll be back out there. And with our song Hail Mary, we got to do lots of things within the NFL and Monday Night Football halftime performances, and fortunately they've reached out again. So we do have some more opportunities within the NFL to do some things. So for us now, it's all just about finding the right focus and timing, and now balancing that with the kids, which is new.
Yeah. I'm curious, like how as a musician you balance family life when you're on tour. I mean, obviously, I guess because your wife would also be on tour with you, it would be slightly different than with some other group. But like, how do you do that?
I wouldn't say that we've totally figured it out yet, but I will say that we just had a performance, and we had our nanny with us who brought our daughter to the sound check, and we played the song I was just telling you about that we wrote for her.
Yeah.
And even just watching her at the sound check as a little 2-year-old clapping along and mouthing the words to the songs, I mean, it's so gratifying. And you're also noticing that she's getting a different life experience from that. So
definitely.
So I think, it's all just the lens that you look at it through. So whereas we used to look at performances so differently, now we're looking at it as, is that a good experience for her? Is this one that makes sense for the family? And there's a business model in there that you can make sure that, you're making money and having a career, but that's never been what drove us. So it's always just now like, is this a good move for the family, and is it beneficial for the kids?
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it sounds like, yeah, things are going really well for you guys, and all sorts of new fun things happening, and a tour to look forward to at some point. So
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story and all the stuff you're involved with. And, thanks again for, your work, whether it's, writing just relatable music to people, or, helping out with Ukraine, and, being involved in all these, really important things going on in the world.
Hey man, you got it. And thank you for everything that you do, man. You're putting a lot of really great stuff out there. So, happy to be here, happy to chat anytime. And thanks for what you do as well, brother.
Awesome.